Good morning, everybody, and welcome to In and Around Lake Forest. I'm Steve Smith, your host, and this broadcast is the first one of 2023. So Happy New Year to everybody. We're glad you're here with us today. We thought we'd start off with a topic and a guest that can speak to something that is happening all over the U.S., not just here in Lake Forest, but it's what many call the graying of America. And as more people age, and they're aging longer, and they're usually aging healthier, they want to stay at home. They don't want to go off and live in some encampment or other place that people kind of warehouse them off to. They want to stay in the comfort of their own home. And the biggest problem we have in our healthcare circles is that there aren't enough good quality organizations to facilitate that. So we're very lucky in that we have one of those facilities, one of those companies right here in Lake Forest. And this is the person that we're going to be talking to today. Her name is Tracy Courtney, and she's the general manager of Visiting Angels, which is located right here in Lake Forest. And we're going to bring her on and talk a little bit about what Visiting Angels is. I mean, most people have probably heard of them because they do a great job with their national advertising. But we thought it would really be good to get an idea of exactly what Visiting Angels does, what they do differently, and how they can serve families who have loved ones who are aging and really can't stay by themselves but don't want to leave their home. So let's bring Tracy on and learn a little more about her and what her organization does. Good morning, Tracy.
Good morning.
Thanks for being with us this morning.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you look great. I love that background and everything. You follow directions really well.
Thank you so much. How's everything with you?
Pretty good. You know, we survived the rain, at least I think we did. And so we're here today, and we're live, and hopefully you will be able to give everybody the benefit of your knowledge about this emerging market that is phasing into boomtown, you know, with all the people that are looking at, you know, what do I do in my later years when I'm really not comfortable being by myself, but I don't want to leave my house. So that's kind of why we have you on. We're really looking forward to what you can educate us on.
Thank you. Thank you. No, I'd be happy to.
All right, so let's just start out by, just so everybody watching has a clear understanding of what Visiting Angels is as a service.
Sure. So Visiting Angels is a home care company. We provide in-home care to all of our seniors in our local community. And by home care, that means that we have care attendants that work with our agency, and we send them out to provide one-on-one care support to all the seniors in their homes who want to remain in their homes. And while they're there, they're assisting them with, you know, all of their, what we consider activities of daily living, getting them through their, you know, kind of just their days in any way possible, and making sure that they're safe and yeah.
All right. So tell us a little bit about how I'm always fascinated by the careers that people pick and the ones that they follow. And, you know, all of a sudden you look back and, gee, I've been in this 20 years, you know, but tell us your journey. How did you get into this line of work? And then how did you come across Visiting Angels?
That's a good question. I actually started out, I've been in healthcare for a very long time, helping coordinate services that started with some of the home health and rehab services. It's all been home-based. Then I transitioned into years of hospice care and of life care support, and I help people coordinate that service. Okay. And then I wanted to get into the third line of home care services, which is in-home service, you know, in-home caregiving services. And I landed here. And I did a lot of the care management, meaning I would go out, I would meet with the families, hear them out, understand what's going on, kind of help align them with the care that they need. And then I would supervise the services once they're on our part of our care team. And then I was contacted by the Visiting Angels team. And there was a fantastic opportunity right in the city of Lake Forest, which is where I live. So typically I have been a little bit outside of where I live, which is no problem, but this was beautiful. It was an opportunity that just aligned beautifully. They are a wonderful group of people. They've got the right vision that I stand behind and support, and it's local. So I feel very connected to my Lake Forest community and my home and the clients and families that we serve. So It's been a wonderful transition. I'm very happy here. And yeah.
We're just glad you were able to come on with us today and kind of,
Yeah.
because we're going to be getting into some other questions that hopefully will help people or families who might be at the forefront of deciding
Yes.
where to put, mom or dad or
Yep.
whoever involved. So I know there's a few other kind of nationally branded organizations like Visiting Angels, and there's probably
Yeah.
a whole host of smaller ones that, occupy very, very local jurisdictions that most people don't ever really hear about. They just kind of run into them at some point, or they get a referral or things like that. So
Sure.
what is it about Visiting Angels that you could tell everybody is a distinction that the way you do it isn't done by the other folks?
I think a couple of things, and I think all the other agencies out there are doing a beautiful job, and they have very similar intentions, and we work alongside them, continuously. But when it comes to Visiting Angels, Visiting Angels has kind of been the pioneer of home care. They've been around for almost 30 years now. They've got
Before the advent of old people, right?
absolutely, but there's 650 locations. But I think maybe specifically with our office here that covers our service area here in Lake Forest, I think we do a couple of things. I think we always try to kind of step into the shoes of the individual that we're sitting with and meeting with. Really take the time to listen and to understand what's happening for them. Like, what are their goals? What do they want? What do their days look like? What are they going through? Where are their struggles? And we try to stay very connected, and we communicate very closely with our families, and we make a really nice ongoing connection with them. We're available to them 24/7. I don't know other people's availability, but I know things come up after hours and weekends, and I think families need our support, and we show them that we're here. We promise to be there every step of the way. I think we've fulfilled that promise to them to be there, because things come up constantly where they need our guidance and support. So we try to make sure we can be there for them.
All right. So when we started talking about this broadcast and having you on, I remember you all very kind of adamantly talking about the idea that it's not just aging at home, it's aging gracefully at home.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that, because I'm sure that kind of goes to the heart of the various levels of quality care that people might expect or might afford to be able to have.
Yeah.
So what does that mean to you guys?
Aging gracefully?
Yes.
I like that term because I think over the years I've seen, aging in place, I think is anyone I come into contact with typically wants to stay in their own home. I'm sure when that day crosses my path, I'm going to want to stay home too.
Mm-hmm.
But on occasion, I think people don't look into home care services early enough on a preventative level. And then sometimes there's an incident, maybe unfortunately there's a fall, a hospitalization, some kind of medical issue that comes up that kind of shakes up that their lives. It kind of disrupts their lives, and they end up in the hospital, and then they transition to different care homes, then back home. And then I feel like if we can get out front of issues that might come up on a preventative level and come in a little bit early, educate a little bit early, I think it helps people age more gracefully in place, because they're not having to go through any kind of catastrophic issues. That's the biggest thing I see that I think can pull them away from the graceful way of living I think most people want to live. I think if you bring a little help in, it goes a long, long way in helping.
All right, so that kind of teased me up for the second question here, which is, I'm sure there's a lot of families out there that have, mom or dad or both that are still living. And typically the mom or dad, they're thinking, we're healthy. I mean, we're fine. We can operate the house here. And so they're not really worried about it, but the family's got a different perspective. They're thinking, oh, what if, what might happen? So how do you help a family figure out what to look for and when is actually the right time?
That's probably the best question someone could ask when it comes to home care, because when when families call in or I meet them in person, that's their biggest question is, when is the right time to bring care in for mom and dad? They seem mostly independent. I want to respect their dignity and allow them to have their independence, but we're concerned. We're seeing some decline, some change in conditions, some red flags that we want to step in and help support. So I think, when it comes to families, I think the best bet is just to set up a time to meet. That's what we recommend. We do complimentary consultations where I or a colleague would come out into the home. We sit down with the family and we have a very open, comfortable, dignified conversation about where we're at. And people kind of express their concerns. Kids are concerned. The roles kind of reverse as you age. As they worry about their kids, then their kids begin to worry about them. So I think the consultations is a nice open forum to start putting together a comfortable plan for everybody to kind of slowly, it's a slow introduction of support, and we ease our way into it. And I think that really helps. But that's the consultations, usually a lot of good information is exchanged from the families and the
All right, so
clients.
you mentioned red flags, and I'm
Yeah.
sure that kind of piques, viewers' interest, especially if you haven't gone through this before.
Yeah.
If you've had a grandparent and you've been part of that, now your parents are kind of next up, you have a little bit of an idea of what to look for. But what are some of the most common red flags that families, convey to you that let you know kind of where that person that's kind of the focus of this, where they are in the process?
Yeah. I'd say some red flags that I see most commonly lately, it's been a lot of cognitive decline, cognitive issues, confusion. Hey, mom seemed fine, 2 weeks ago, but when I went to visit her last week, she hadn't taken her medications for the week, or the food didn't seem like she was eating any of the food that I brought for her last week, or she was a little confused about when her doctor's visit was. And, I'd say that the cognitive decline, the flags of the cognitive decline are probably my number one. So I think if you're seeing that, it might be kind of worth, okay, maybe we want to see if we have somebody come check in on mom a few times a week and make sure she's getting meals and meds and hygiene's being kept up and things like that. Falls is probably my number two is, hey, mom or dad, sister, brother, neighbor have had 3 falls in the past couple of months. I mean, if you're having more than 3 falls a year, there's probably that would be a little bit of a red flag. Just what's causing the falls, when are they happening? Because if we know when they're happening and maybe possibly why they're happening, we might be able to set up a time to have someone come in during those times of struggle and kind of ease them through that and hopefully prevent those falls moving forward. Definitely a 911 call or a hospitalization, probably obvious red flag. Something's happening medically and we need to have more oversight when we transition back home.
Okay.
Any kind of orthopedic, hips and knee replacements are kind of big. Shoulders, any orthopedic procedures, that's kind of a big one. I'd say that's one of the bigger ones. And something else that's not talked about quite as much that might be a flag is if you notice, mom and dad lives alone or parents live alone. Usually the couples will take care of each other. And you'll notice they'll protect and support each other, which is beautiful. But if somebody's living alone, that can be a bit of a just a flag of concern, just keeping a closer eye on things, because a lot of people that live alone tend to be a little isolated, a little bit lonely. And I think that leads to some level of depression. It kind of comes about where they lose track of what day it is, what time it is, just because their level of engagement with people outside the home is so low. So we've had clients before call into that situation, and we call them just engagement visits, companionship level visits, where they're just coming in, again, always checking on meals and meds and hygiene, but helping with laundry and linens and things around the home, grocery shopping, and these kind of wellness visits. I've seen it myself, 2 or 3 a week for a couple of hours. They look forward to it. These clients they're thrilled. They can't wait to see their visiting angel come in and kind of, that's usually, sadly, sometimes that's the only visit they're getting sometimes within those weeks is the visit from our team. So,
all right, so you mentioned like when a husband and wife are still intact, even though they're aging, they might be able to kind of care and support themselves. But do you have incidences where one of your your nurses that visit comes into a home that has the mother and the father still there?
Yes. Oh, definitely couples care. Yeah. So, yeah, when our caregivers or visiting angels come into the home, we can definitely provide support for, mom, dad, any couples in the home.
Mhm.
I, it depends on how, their age and their medical, like, and during the assessment, I'll kind of collect some information about what's medically going on with mom and dad. So I kind of can understand better what their needs are, but we can definitely provide that support for couples. And again, it helps them maintain in the home if you bring the help in versus waiting for something to happen. I notice a
Right.
lot of times people wait, oh, we'll hold off another month and see how they do. And I respect people's decisions 100%, but I do see a higher success rate of avoiding any issues if we come in a little early, very delicately, a few times a week to help support individuals or couples. Because sometimes with couples, it's usually, I don't know why, but it tends to be one spouse is doing relatively well, right? Well maintained, isn't having any
Mhm.
medical issues they're dealing with. Then it tends to be another one of the spouses, does have a medical or cognitive issue. And what happens is the spouse that's caring for the individual that's having medical issues tends to kind of decline themselves because it's hard to be the primary person caring for them. So
Right.
a
Yeah.
little help, I would say a little help goes a long way. And that's usually how we can help spouses and couples and things like that in their home.
All right, so I'm sure you probably have this on somewhat of a regular basis, but what happens when a family or some family member contacts you and says, we're seeing these, we think maybe it's time to consider this, and the actual parent that's in the home doesn't want it. They're not ready for it. They've decided in their own head that it's not necessary. So you've got kind of a little bit of friction in
Resistance,
the family. Yeah, yeah.
resistance.
So how do you help in that situation?
That's another very good question. I would say when I'm going in for consultations for in-home care, resistance is probably at 40-50%. Usually the individual is not comfortable
Right.
to have a stranger
Hmm.
come into their home, into their private space, and, you know, help around the home. Um, it's unusual for them. I mean, these days I always laughingly say, hey, if somebody offered to go in my house and help me out for a few hours a day, I would be like, come on in, like, please, I'll accept the help. But it's different. It's a different generation. It's not as comfortable for people to have, people come into their homes and help them. They've explained that to me a million times. So we call that just some resistance.
Okay.
How we combat that and support that and get through that is different with every family. Um, I couldn't pinpoint how we approach it. It's delicately delivered in whatever way is going to make the individual feel the most comfortable. What I always recommend too is I tell them, I say, hey, let's try this for 1 week. 1 week, and if it's okay, let's try it for 1 week. If you don't feel like this visiting angel coming in is someone you're connecting with and feeling good about, we can make a change. We can put things on hold for a while and see how you do, but let's just try it. So I do a lot of trial-based recommendations. Like, let's just see how this goes for a
Right.
week.
Right. All right.
And
So when it
yeah,
comes to whether it's just a trial period or everybody involved actually says, yes, let's start this.
yeah,
Um, how do you guys go about matching up the client and the home health care provider,
yes.
so that, because let's face it, if they're going to see these folks on any kind of a regular interval throughout the week, there's got to be a match in terms of, are they going to like each other, or are they going to be willing to work with each other? So how do you deal with that?
You're 100% correct. I always say it's like the match.com of caregiving. You have to really, you know what I mean? You have to
Swipe
kind of
left, right?
I want them to swipe in the correct direction. Yes.
Right.
So during the consultation, I really pay attention to the individual and the family. I really, really do. I really take the time to focus in on the person that we're caring for. I listen to the family, of course, and hear them out, but I want the client to feel like I'm hearing them and I'm listening to their things. And I ask them what they enjoy doing. And, if you ask them what kind of activities they enjoy doing, you just get to know them on a personal level. You can kind of pick up on, okay, I get an idea of what this person's like. I take that information back to my office. and I review my whole team, and I know all about my team, whether location, where are they living? How close are they to the client's home? What kind of experience do they have? You know, do they have a lot of experience working with patients with dementia and Parkinson's? Great. This particular visiting angel has, 5 years of experience working with cognitive issues. I look at personality traits. I look at, I look at a variation of different issues, but really the personality match and the experience, the skills, the location is really what makes it harmonious. But the most important thing, you're 100% right. The two of them, I can teach the caregiver how to, take care of a client if needed. That's easy, but I can't teach that connection. The two of them have to have a connection. So the caregivers we recruit and hire, I'm very intentional and looking for a very specific type of person, because the kind of care we provide takes a lot of compassion, a lot of empathy, a lot of patience, a lot of love. I've done it myself. That's where I started too. I was in the field caring for the clients too. So that's what it takes. And then with that comes connection. And once you build the connection, you see a very, very happy client there. They don't feel like clients. It feels like a friend coming over.
Okay.
Feels like a friend, a trusted friend coming over.
All right. So you basically just led me right into the next question, which is how do you find the caregivers that you want on your team? What is your criteria? How difficult is it? I mean, there's a whole host of industries today that are just seemingly dried up of talent that they want. And so, open jobs tend to stay open way, way longer than they have in the past. And I would imagine that your industry kind of is under the same kind of pressure. So how do you find the people that you say, yes, that person needs to have visiting angels on their uniform?
Yep. So I actually manage all of the recruitment pieces. So we don't do a lot of outreach to find the attendants or the visiting angels. We post ads, usually on social media and different other forums, and they usually contact us. They can do that electronically, or they can call into the office anytime. We usually schedule an interview. That's step one. That's my chance to sit down with them and get a good feel for who they are, how they present, what's their experience, what are they looking for, are we the right fit, where do they live? I really kind of get as much information as possible. And if they can get through that first interview, and I feel really comfortable, with them, and I feel like, okay, they've got the heart, the empathy, the experience. I do like to see that they've had at least 1 year of personal or professional experience providing hands-on care. It's not a driving no if they don't. But it's a big plus if they do, because that 1 year really kind of helps them jump into a home and they know how to navigate through the home and provide the care.
Okay.
After that, we run through rigorous background checks, make sure they've got all of their vaccinations. The background checks are pretty rigorous. We make sure they have their California state mandates that they have to be registered through the state, which requires fingerprinting and TB tests. So we make sure that they have that registration complete. If they don't, we can help walk them through that. Once that's complete, we do a thorough orientation and training. We bring them back into the office, and that usually takes about a day. And then once that's all clear, everything's cleared, and they complete the orientation, we look through our open client list and we try to find them the right client for them. So it's funny, we sometimes have clients and we're looking for caregivers, but sometimes I have caregivers or visiting angels and we're looking to play, I'm looking for clients for them too. So I do that at the end once the orientation is complete.
Okay. All right. So we talked previously about, it would make it so much easier if families or the loved ones that were in charge of starting this process could get it a little early and not wait for those catastrophic events that say, yeah, now we have to have something. If somebody is out there, wanting to get a sense of what they're going to be looking to have to do, and maybe the time isn't imminent at this point, how do they contact you? I mean, is this a phone call? Do they go to the local office? What's the best way to interface with you folks at that very early stage?
Yeah, but thank you for bringing that up because my motto is it's never too early to make the call. And I mean that just have the information with you, have the resources and knowledge with you. And the best way to do that, you are welcome to call into our office anytime, 24/7. We have a team member available to assist families with those phone calls. You can come by our office location in Lake Forest anytime. Our business hours are, Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 5, if you want to come in.
Mhm.
You can also go to visitingangels.com, our website, and you can submit an inquiry for home care service requests through the website as well. So those are the three main ways people get in contact. The most popular is just an old-fashioned phone call. You
Yeah.
just call in, hey, you got a few minutes? I've got a situation. I'd love some guidance. And whether
Okay.
they come on to service or not, I will do everything I can to help them navigate through a very overwhelming system called healthcare.
Yeah.
So,
That's good to know because I think a lot of people, you know, just the way today things are, a lot of people are afraid to reach out because they feel like they're going to be kind of sucked into this gauntlet of sales
no.
pressure and stuff. So
Yep,
it's good to know
I
that,
agree.
you will provide them guidance and advice, irrespective of whether they sign on for your service.
100%. 100%. Even if they call in and they're giving me a situation and I don't think home care is the most appropriate, step for them,
Mhm.
I I'll always help them with any transitional care support that they might need. It could be,
Nice.
hey, we start with Meals on Wheels. Okay, let's start with something simple. Let's start with something small. And then maybe we might be a few months down the line if you need us, but you're not going to feel any pressure from us over here at Visiting Angels. No way. I'm just here to help with all the years of being in the industry. I've acquired some, just some knowledge and information along the way. And I
Right.
always pass that along to anyone that calls in.
All right, so here's kind of the more unappealing side of this whole conversation, which is cost. Um,
Yes.
I can only imagine, because I have done an extensive amount of reading in this particular area, that
Yeah.
the costs are pretty significant. And depending on the level of care and whether you go into a senior community with all kind of amenities,
Yes.
that's where
Yep.
things get really pricey. So,
Yes.
are people, how well prepared are people financially to get into this?
That is the most difficult situation that we come across is like, how do these families and individuals find the budget to afford care? Because home care services are unfortunately and very often, I should say, very often not covered by your medical insurance. Therefore, it's private pay out of pocket. So, you know, families typically hopefully have put a little money aside or have some assets they typically will use to help kind of subsidize the cost of the home care services,
Mhm.
or we just keep a schedule nice and light and affordable. We don't
Mhm.
have to be in there every day 8 hours a day. We can come in a few times a week and be
Right.
beneficial. I do want to always let people know that if your loved one or the individual who needs care, there are veterans benefits through the VA administration, along with some kind of spousal benefits.
Right.
I always recommend and have resources for. And if anyone has long-term care insurance,
Oh,
it's a
yes.
specific policy you purchase for home care and assisted living costs,
Right.
which not everyone has, but I do tend to ask, and they will provide coverage as well. So the VA and long-term care, they do provide the coverage needed to cover the cost of home care, so
Okay.
which can be very helpful. So I always make sure we don't have any. Let's make sure all of the resources that you have underneath you are utilized before we pay out of pocket.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So, we've covered a wide gamut of things that, affect not only the service, regardless of who provides it, but you guys in particular. Is there anything that I didn't ask you that you want to mention that you think people should know about?
I'm thinking that's a really good question. I think we covered a lot of good areas today, very honestly. Understanding the services, understanding how it's costs, the approach. Um, I think letting people know, myself along with other agencies, like I said, we'll provide a free consultation. The consultations are non-committal. This is just information. So if you have families call in and we could set up a time to sit down, have a nice interface.
Right.
Um, that's something that's available through Visiting Angels anytime families want to meet and discuss. Um, Otherwise, no, I think we covered the important topics, and I'm glad that you had very good questions. I wanted to think of, before we had this meeting, I thought, when families call in, what are the things I'm asked most consistently? And
Right.
everything that you brought up today covers the topics where people have brought it up to me and said, help, what do I do? I don't know when, why, how much.
Right.
Those are the
Okay.
big questions people ask.
Well, now I just thought of it. There is one important question that I neglected to ask you, and it came out from looking at your bio. And my burning question for today is, what kind of motorcycle do you ride?
Why not? I have a Harley Davidson Sportster.
Oh, the big Harley. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Look, it's always nice to meet somebody else, or certainly a guest on this program that shares a love of motorcycle riding. So how did you get into that?
You know what's funny is just a couple of girlfriends of mine were riding, and some friends had a Sportster is a pretty small Harley. It's the smallest Harley Davidson they have. It's a tiny bike. I've just always been kind of a tomboy. I like to get out and ride bikes and just be outdoors and do adventurous things. And so I took the course, like the little safety course. Obviously, that's what you have to take it to get your license. And I fell in love with riding on the course and got the bike, got the license. And now on any free time I have, you'll probably see me out in Lake Forest on my little Harley Davidson.
That's wonderful. Now, do you have a little banner on the back that says, call us at Visiting Angels? You do any advertising while you're out riding?
No, but I probably should. No.
Now that we've made mention of this, Deepak's going to be calling me saying, how do we do that?
Maybe I'll put a little sticker, like a little
there you go.
Sticker on my helmet.
That's right. That'd probably be the easiest way to do it.
Or like a little I Heart Lake Forest. Then you'll know it's me.
Well, listen, Tracy, thank you very much for being on today and for giving us some really, really great information about this whole process. Because like I said, I think probably the majority of people that know they're going to get into this, it's always the first time for them. So it's always very much of where do we start, and probably make a fair amount of mistakes before you figure it out. So it's kind of nice to hear from somebody that's local here that can kind of tell you, look, this is the way it works, and this is the best place to start. So thank you very much for that.
You're so welcome. I'm so happy to help. Thank you for having me on. This has been fun.
All right. Listen, folks, you've been listening to an interview with Tracy Courtney of Visiting Angels here in Lake Forest. And believe me, with all of the information that she just conveyed, if you know someone, a neighbor, somebody you work with that's right at the forefront of this, and they didn't watch this live, direct them to the Lake Forest Chamber page on Facebook, and have them go watch it, because in 30 minutes they will learn everything they need to know to be able to confidently figure out what to do next. And I think that's the biggest benefit of having these kind of broadcasts. So thank you all for being here and for watching. We will be back in 2 weeks with another great interview with another local business to kind of let you know what's going on here in Lake Forest, so that if it's a service or a product you've been looking for, you can just stay at home and get it locally. You don't have to go to Amazon to find it. So thank you for being with us, Tracy. Thank you. Well, I know we'll see you soon, but everybody, thank you for being with us. We'll talk to you soon. Have a great week.
Bye. Thank you.